once you really hear Chris Hemsworth speak the lines, the Peter Cullen lines, like towards the end of the film, at first, I'll be really honest with you, I wasn't a believer. When I first started hearing the recordings of Hemsworth, I was like, I don't know, man. Doesn't sound like Peter Cullen. Doesn't sound like Transformers and what I know. But as he started to evolve the character, he was having conversations with Peter. He became Optimus Prime.
That's amazing.
Scarlett's performance, and man, I gotta say, Brian Tyree Henry steals the show for me, man. Like,
Really?
yeah, but also, I will say, it is a very dark story. Like,
Mhm.
it goes deep. Sitting there listening to Brian Tyler's Sweet, and we were playing like scenes from our movies on a loop with that music, and we just all closed our eyes, man, and we just listened to his score, and I was like, holy crap, this is history in the making, dude. This is true history being made right now. I'm getting hyped just talking about it.
Hey, welcome everyone in here and out there, from the cities of Earth to the roads of Cybertron, to another episode of Teletran Creatorverse. I'm your host, Alfonso Peterman. Let's do this. The anticipation journey for the global release of the Transformers One animated film is soon coming to a close, as we are merely days away from the theatrical release of the first animated Transformers film since Transformers Prime, Predacons Rising, and the 1986 G1 film. But this project sets a new record as our first ever fully focused origins story that will showcase the lore of Cybertron and the conception of the thrilling warfare of its factions. Our long-awaited human-free Transformers movie is upon us. Well, my guest tonight is one of the brilliant leaders who have been graced with overseeing this historic project, and one who is definitely no stranger to the world of animation. He's worked on projects like Megamind, How to Train Your Dragon 2, Kung Fu Panda, Secrets of the Masters, Trolls, and even video games like Battlefield 4 and G.I. Joe Rise of Cobra. And now he has joined the Transformers franchise for the first time ever. It is my high honor and privilege to welcome the production designer for Transformers One himself, Mr. Jason Scheier. Mr. Scheier, welcome to the show.
Wow, that's an intro and a half right there, man. That's awesome. I love the that you go so deep into the introductions of things and really hearing the thought process behind and the professionalism that you bring to this. So I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And yeah, it's just so cool to, like I was telling you before we started, to be here full circle, just discussing this. And we're both fans of the franchise. And I'm just happy to be here and share with you today about what it was like to be the production designer on Transformers One.
That's amazing. Yes, it's definitely a pleasure and honor to be able to sit down and discuss the exciting new movie you guys have been preparing for us. And based on such an overwhelmingly positive reception at the recent advanced screenings, there seems to be a strong confidence by fans and even Paramount in the quality of this film. And that second trailer, I honestly feel, really shifted some things in favor of this movie. So I'm excited to dive in, and I truly thank you for taking the time to chat with the Alfonso Nation.
Absolutely.
And also, thank you for your support, to the creator community that I've noticed over the past few months. I was honored to hear that you've been watching and enjoying even some of the videos that I put out. So I just wanted to thank you for that, truly.
Thank you. Thanks for the amazing content.
Thank you. Yes, so we have a pretty big project, I would say, admittedly, with some pretty historical proportions. This is obviously, like I said, the first animated film since 2013, Predacons Rising, and then the first theatrical release animated with 86 before that. And of course, this is the debut of a few industry giants like Chris Hemsworth, Scarlett Johansson, Keegan-Michael Key, Brian Tyree. How do you feel about the results of the project, considering the nature of all of these first-time occurrences?
Oh, I feel extremely hopeful and excited and overjoyed about the entire project in general. I can tell you a little bit about how like I came to be part of the project if you'd like, and
Sure.
walk you through that process. So, um, Aaron Dem, who was one of the key producers, actually a creative producer on the project, was brought on to Paramount Pictures to help develop the team. And at that point, Josh Cooley, our fearless director and leader, was looking for a production designer to sort of help mold the visual style for the film. And before I came on, there was actually another production designer that was working on the movie. And for some reason, it didn't work out, which was actually kind of great in my favor that there was still an opportunity to come on and help out. I actually didn't even know it was a Transformers film. When Aaron called me as I got a project, it's over at Paramount. And I was like, oh, it's going to be something like, Paramount D. And I wasn't sure what it was going to be. And hearing that it was Transformers, I literally had to like hold on to my like explanation. I was about to blow up inside. I was so overjoyed because talking to you earlier, I'm a fan of the 84 series. I watched all four seasons. I saw the 1986 film in the theaters with my parents as a 6 year old. And that movie rocked my world, and it's just Orson Welles, Leonard Nimoy, the voices of Star Trek and like some of the greatest movies known to man. Like it's incredible. And it's a legacy that and an empire that is far beyond whatever I can ever fathom and imagine. But to be asked to be part of something like that is very humbling. And to answer your question, looking back on that, I'm extremely proud of the project that we've created because all of us were passionate about it. All of us love it and are excited to wake up every single morning and we're absorbing all the information that we've learned from before and being respectful and careful about the mistakes and the lessons that we've learned and how to apply them to make the best possible product for this team.
That's amazing. That's awesome. And I'm truly confident, always with passion, there's quality, there's a
Oh,
masterpiece
for sure.
that
Yeah,
follows. Well, that's awesome. So your role in the making of this film is production designer. And so for
that's
those
right.
who are unfamiliar with the responsibilities of a production designer, I'd like for you to briefly share what sort of everyday tasks and major contributions you performed in the making of Transformers.
Yeah. So the production designer helps build the art crew. We put together schedules and budgets with our producer. We also work closely with our director, producer, head of story to imagine all the visuals for the film. So I usually work by myself for the first few months. And then I also need to start bringing on key designers for the film. So we had a very small art crew on this movie. I had myself, my art director, who is Gerald De Jesus, and then also I consulted with Josh Cooley, who laid down like kind of what the overview would be for the design and what his like tentpole keystone goals were for the film. But I have to ask all those questions. And so it's my role to get into the trenches with him and start asking questions like, what are the sort of key tentpole ideas that you want to see as a visual style and a layer cake of ideas that will help manifest the visual style for the film. And I'm asking questions about story a lot. What is who is Orion Pax? Who is D16 and who is B127 and Alita 1? I want to know who they are, Ariel, even before Alita 1. And I wanted to know who these characters were as people, as sentient beings, I should say.
Mhm.
And how do I inject the world and create the world around them? And because this is the first time that we're seeing Cybertron ever in a film where it's being depicted in an entire movie, I was like, whoa, this is really cool. I get a chance to world build. And
Yes.
that's what I am. Like, honestly, what I do, that's my job is I'm a world builder. And I design things from the inside out and then from the outside in, with if that makes sense to you.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about the ecosystems. I'm thinking about the biomes. I'm thinking about even government and how like logic law works inside the space and the visual sort of iconography.
Mhm.
So it's not only like a geographical and a environmental study, it's actually like a philosophical study of a civilization. And so to do that, you kind of have to know a little bit of everything. You have to know physics, you have to know biology, and you have to know a lot about like the mathematics of a society and how things sort of like geometrically fit together. I work really closely with Gerald. So Jerry, I call him Jerry. He came on very early with me, and we really spent a lot of time plussing those ideas together. And one thing I really learned, because I've worked in live action, I've done some live action like commercials and TV shows. Snowpiercer's one of them I worked on, and I realized that nothing in animation is free. Like down to this Wacom pen that's on the table and the screens that we're looking at, everything needs to be designed and it has to fit into that world. And so my job is to figure out what is the design language? What is the visual language that we're going to speak as we see through the entire film? And so working with Josh was amazing because he comes from Pixar, and that's a CG, one of the forerunners of the greatest CG animated movie that ever was ever made, which was Toy Story, which everybody sort of looked at and said puzzled over and studied and figured out that that's the way we approach animation in a pipeline, right? And so Josh was there from the very beginning. He understands that like shorthand of discussing visual ideas. He's a storyboard artist, which is insane, and he draws extremely well. And we also had Bobby Rubio there, who was the head of story. And Bobby, Aaron Dem and Josh were always involved in my day-to-day conversations about like what are the visual sort of like tentpoles for each sequence, not only just the overarching big picture 3,000-foot view, but what does every sequence mean to serve the best purpose for the story? And I think for me, story is king, right? If I'm going to design anything, I want to make sure that the story is what drives it forward, and Josh is no different. And I have a lot of sense of helping imagine and visualize worlds as it's being created and developed. And so for me, I had to be very patient for Josh, and Josh had to be very patient with me. And we both discovered that sort of wheelhouse together. So that's my job, as a production designer, is really hiring the entire art crew, working with the vendors every single day. And I'm in it from the very beginning, from blue sky, which is like nothing pie in the sky. You're aiming for the stars, go to level 11, and then reeling it back in slightly for production and making it something that's visually tangible and executable for the vendor. And in this case, the masters at Industrial Light and Magic.
That is incredible. Yes, we definitely gonna speak about Ireland, but I love that. I love how you said it's not just the environmental building, but it's also understanding the civics of like a civilization, a society,
That's right.
how the environment plays directly into the societal structure of like the government and kind of even like the political structure of like the characters. And we know that this is going to be something that is heavily focused on since this is a war and this is the
Yep.
factions that are building and there's a lot of conflict there. But that's very interesting and I didn't even think about that in terms of like from a design standpoint. And so you can definitely see that, in the trailers and how you guys have organized like, these citadels and these structures, but it's almost like palaces in a way. And
That's right. Yeah.
so it's very interesting. Now you guys didn't, just get monetary support via the studio,
Mm,
but also creative support via Hasbro. From
that's
what I
right.
understand, I think Josh Cooley said that they gave you guys a massive Transformers lore PDF, like the length of the Bible, if that's right. Were you
Yeah.
part of the crew that went in to go through all of that source material? And if so, how important was it for building this story?
That's a really great question. Josh and I and Aaron got that PDF. There was multiple PDFs, by the way. It was one PDF was just about design. The other one was about story and all the primes and all the specifics about Cybertron that were sort of in the earlier bedrock of the foundation of the design language. But also it's about things I hadn't even known. Like there was things that they have written so much about, Transformers that I was like, this is incredible. There's like an archaeological museum to dive through. And I had to like almost digest it all first, ingest it, and sort of let it out a little bit to be like, what do we use that is going to be our film? And that's takes a lot of due diligence. I was like extremely overwhelmed, to be perfectly honest with you. It was a lot of information, but thankfully I have such a great team surrounding me and a lot of trust. And making a movie is sort of a series of trust falls, right? Everybody has to trust each other. We all look at the same material together and we go, okay, this is great. This is great. I can't tell you how many times we call it the war room, where we're around the Knights of the Round Table, sort of like primes around the table. And we actually called it the Hall of Primes. Like that was our room where we like talked about everything.
That's so cool.
And every morning we met and just talked about how we were gonna build the movie and how each sequence was supposed to be, driving the story forward. And it was such a like it felt like kids. We were sitting at a table, drawing our dreams on the table. All of us were sharing these great ideas, having reactions to them, and saying that's going to be in the movie. And we had the most amazing story team and previs team and our team I've ever worked with in my entire career. And it was like Josh was like, I want that guy, and they would just come. People were like let's get that guy, let's get this girl, let's get this person. And all of us just had that same approach of passion, and that gravitas was felt from that material. That source material kept feeding us. And we also wanted to tell the story of the origin of these characters. And so I went back and rewatched all the shows again. I went back and watched the features, all the live action features. And is there anything in here in terms of animation style? Is there something unique here in the way that the materials feel? I knew it was a metal world, right? But we also wanted, and as you can see in the trailers, no spoilers, that there is, organics on this planet, and we don't explain it in the movie, but there's story to why those organics are there. There's story that I actually pitched to Josh and we utilized and we put it into the movie. And we could talk about that later in our non-spoilerly, after we can spoil it a little bit, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. But
That's amazing.
there's a lot of homage and a lot of respect to the old content.
That's amazing. Yeah, one of my questions was about the organic nature of
Yeah,
Cybertron. I'm sure this movie's been in the making for a long time, and I have to assume I remember this being the untitled animated film back in
yeah.
2022, and now we're on the brink of release. Time has truly flown by. How exactly long was the overall production for the film, and what was
Yeah,
it like working alongside director Cooley and the voice cast and crew member along this journey?
sure. So for me personally, I was on the project for 3 years, and Josh was on it for 5. So usually a director's on it longer than anybody else because they're writing the story. And in this case, not only did we have Ferrara and Gabriel and all the other people we brought in to help write the story, but Josh wrote the story. He may have not received a credit for that, but he has written the majority of the story 3 or 4 times throughout the course of the film. And so for me to come in at, the second year mark for him, he was so ready to have visuals made for the story. So he had his own PDF of, hey, I want to look at Art Deco. I want to look at line decker. And some of the things that I was looking at was this Art Deco, but I was like, you know what? How do we take Art Deco and mix it with Cybertron? How do we mix it with the architecture of Icon City? And I knew that it was going to be this underground world icon, as it was in the cartoon. And it was basically built underneath this huge mantle. And I had this idea that, and we don't talk about it too much in the story, but visually you can see it, that there's stalactite buildings. There's buildings that are suspended upside down from the ceiling of this understructure. And so the environment, as you've seen in the trailers, they can polymorph, they can transform and move.
Yes.
And so I thought of it in a way of a landscape that is sort of like a kinetic sculpture, right? And kinetics is like the physics of moving, the physics of plates sliding on top of each other.
Mhm.
And how amazing is it that their world is actually alive? Their world is a place where it is not only like rare minerals and geodes, it is a landscape that is deep in space, and it has its own sort of breathing and apparatus to it. And so I was like, this is really cool. What if we started to talk about that, and what does that mean for Josh? And Josh spoke with me and reacted with me greatly with the idea of this Art Deco mixed with cassette futurism. And I pitched this idea with my team, one of my artists, Tim Kalock, brought up cassette futurism when we were having our early internal art department discussions. And he's like, have you seen, I mean, we all grew up with it, but those like 1980s monitors that have that sort of like curved radius on the edge, and everything has like this hard, almost like diagonal kind of bend to it. And I actually, if you look closely, the Autobot symbol and the Decepticon logo is the design language of the whole city, everything. So down to the window shapes and the structures are all based off of those logos. And so I
Wow.
took that Nagiri, like very essential logo design, and I go, okay, every window needs to have that same angle of a panel cut down to the characters. And if you look at the characters like body study, there's actually angles that are echo reflections of that specific design language. And so not only Transformers is curve versus straight, but it's also diagonals. And so we brought it down to the most similar like principles of squares, circles, trapezoids, and rectangles. It's that simple. And then we built the world based off of simple primitive shapes. And we also thought about all the characters' color philosophies. So each sequence, and you'll see this as you watch the film, there's a color attached to each character. So if that character appears in that scene, we're actually bathing the environment with their color. So you
Oh my God.
feel, not only are you feeling the story, but you're actually feeling that character's presence visually in the scene. And that's something I wanted to do, was attach that color from the character into the sequence. And you'll see that operatic sort of unfolding of cinematic sort of thinking throughout the entire film.
I've never heard anything like that for like like ever actually. So that's incredible. Like it's fascinating you said how the environments and the structures were geometrically inspired from the insignias.
Yep,
That's something that we definitely noticed the difference in the design language for the environment and then the characters. But now that you're drawing the correlation, we can like I would have never noticed, but I do see that curvature and like the pointy angles, and
that's
it's
right.
all integrated into their design. And
Yep,
I was gonna ask like what was one of the like the driving forces behind this design, because we see the G1 film and like the G1 series is very square and boxy. We see
that's
uh
right.
like live action stuff is very prickly and spiky, and then we see like Transformers Prime is very smooth and curved. This is kind of like a interwoven child of all of them almost in a
Yep,
way.
that's right.
And I it's incredible that it's birthed from the insignias. That's very very creative. Very
And
creative.
if you look at and it's not a spoiler either because you're looking at the trailers, you know that that's the well, the well of sparks. And that's the world's center. That's literally the center of Icon. And I like literally built that first. When we started the story, I was like, that's the well of sparks. So we got to make everything come from the center radius and sort of graduate out from that center point. And everything else in the city is built around that. And so there's this infrastructure of key roadways, key pieces of landscape that sort of drive towards that. And in every single direction, 360 degrees, we built that in the art department as a scale model. So I took our Orion Pax, which is actually like 24.5 feet tall, very, very tall person, sentient being. And we put them right on top of the well, and we built a world around that. And I always put Orion Pax's hands next to walls and doors to make sure that it's actually accurate to scale and accurate to the world. So the world is not made up. Like they actually transform one to one. They're really like the toys. And I want to bring up Amy Beth Christensen, ABC, who was our lead character designer and an art director over at Industrial Light and Magic. She was instrumental in creating the characters, the lineup of all the characters. And you should absolutely have a conversation with her because not only she was a partner with me on creating the lineup for every single character in the movie. And Gerald De Jesus, Jerry, was also instrumental in helping me world build everything. When I see something, I want to see a strong icon. I want to see a strong silhouette that you'll remember and it will resonate with you forever. And I took all the entire lineup of the 1980s movies, the G1, and I put them in a lineup and I turned off all their interior detail and just looked at them as shapes. That was my first thing I ever did for the movie. And I took all of them and I go, okay, what's happening here? There's something not as pleasing to me as it could be. What could we do to stretch and sort of push and pull dimension and proportion to make sure that this thing can be even more heroic than ever? And so what I did was I actually looked at anime. I looked at, Transformers 1, sorry, Transformers Prime. I looked at the original live action movies, and I was like, you know what? No disrespect to Michael Bay because he has his own universe, but they're overly fractalized. They're overly we call them metal pieces in a blender, where when they transform, it just looks like moving metal in front of the camera, and you can't tell where the faces are. And I can't connect with the characters. And so when I was talking to Josh, I said, what do you want to have for their faceplates? What do you want to see where we can feel their soul? I want people to believe that they're actually existing and not disconnected. And we want to not be uncanny, obviously. That was one thing we really didn't want to do, was make a humanoid face. But we looked at the G1 Masterpiece Edition toys. I have a ton of them here. And I pulled them out and just studied them. And I said, okay, I like that faceplate. I like these Masterpiece faceplates. They're simple. They're easy to read. And there's also a story reason behind that. So when you first see them in the origin, they haven't earned their faceplates yet. They're still minors. And so their faces are just simple polymorphic shapes like you and I. But as we get older, as we become more crimson to the world around us, we start to earn these like age lines, right? We start to, have wrinkles. And we wanted it to be the same for Transformers. As they become more stoic and heroic through the story, they actually we add more panel cuts on them and make them earn those lines because they're becoming another level up through the story.
That's incredible. I mean, just from listening, the amount of detail that you guys have put, like even into design, into story, like that is wild. And you can see that. I mean, even in the trailers, you can see their different phases. We've noticed, like especially Megatron, right? We see
Yeah,
D16 minor version, then we have him kind of like a little bit more matured, and you can definitely see he even increases in scale. But then that final moment, like the final version, the triple
right.
barrel cannon and the full, like you can see the metamorphosis across the duration of the film. That's a testament to the even the visual storytelling that we're gonna get alongside the actual depiction of events, which is incredibly detail oriented. That's you guys are incredibly talented. I can't wait to see this.
If you watch Transformers 1, I hope you feel cinema when you watch it. It's a movie that's meant to be seen in theaters because of the scale. There's no better way to see it than like IMAX. You're getting the feeling of being in on Cybertron and living in those landscapes and watching them come to life.
That's absolutely incredible, and I cannot wait. IMAX is definitely the way to go. I will say, as a production designer, one of
Yeah,
your key priorities would have involved taking leadership over a team, as you said, and working alongside the head of story, which in this case will be Bobby Rubio, and constructing the visuals for this movie in order to bring it to life. And judging from these trailers and the early screening feedback, the visuals are absolutely breathtaking for this film. So hats off to you guys for that.
thank you.
Yes, but one of the things that the fans also noticed were some of the design connections between these characters and known continuities, like the 2018 Bumblebee movie designs.
Yep.
P-127 with his Cybertronian alt mode, Soundwave with his flying pancake design, like the Studio Series figure, Starscream and the Seekers in their similar jet modes. What were some of the biggest inspirations that led you guys into designing these characters? And was there any intentional connection for these design similarities?
Absolutely. They're all connected to the Transformers universe. And, we grabbed our favorite sort of inspiration from all of those shows and designs that you've seen. And Travis Knight's Bumblebee movie, the opening is probably some of the greatest Transformers cinema ever created. And looking at that, I was like, how do we, for me, I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. And I thought it was something where I was like, I want to see more of that. But it also felt like it would be hard to do a whole movie that looks like that because it's hard to see the government. It's hard to see the civil society behind that war-torn sort of ecosystem. And I feel like we're going to get there, if we get a chance to have this trilogy and continue to develop the story, which is already in Josh's mind, by the way. I've already talked to him. I believe that it's game changing looking at things that have come behind us, before us, and then putting them behind us and building that pathway and unleashing the technology that we have in our hands and being able to talk to people like Industrial Light and Magic that are key players in this. I can't sing my praises any more of them because they were an extension of our team. We had people over there that were just as nerdy as we were about Transformers. And we had long conversations with their environment team and with their look dev designers and all of their compositors. And I wanted to give a big shout out to Alex Popescu, who was our environment lead. He was like my right-hand man. The entire time I was working on the show, I was actually conversating with him about the environment philosophy. And Jerry and I were on meetings with him every week, and his entire team was there sharing ideas, pitching ideas at us. So it was not only a reaction on our side, on the, I would say it's stateside, and then over in Sydney and Aussie land, and also big shout out to Singapore as well, who I will talk to you about this after. ILM Singapore, it's very emotional for me. They shut down while they were working on this movie. And I had been working with ILM Singapore on Ultraman when I was at Netflix. That was a movie that was on as well. That was ILM. And that was almost all done at Singapore. And after 20 years, they shut their doors because of the economy. And it was so heartbreaking because, in my opinion, Transformers 1 is their swan song. Like they did their best work because they knew that that was the last time that they were going to be open as a studio. And all of them poured their heart and souls into every single sequence that they worked on.
Wow.
And so when you see stuff, I will not go into detail just yet, but there's a scene where they own that. That is their scene. And it's one of the best scenes. In my opinion, it's the best scene in the entire movie.
Wow.
And we'll talk about it after when you've seen the film, because it's definitely a spoiler if I bring it up.
Wow, it's incredible, but it's a little disheartening because they gave their all for that for this project, but it was because of the fact that they were being decommissioned essentially. And
well, they didn't know. I mean, they were already giving their all, and
yeah, right.
Making these movies are not just making a movie, it's actually our life and it's our livelihood. And when I see people criticizing a film, I take that stuff personally because we're literally putting our all into it. And it has to have that ability to reach across internationally, to touch audiences of all ages. And from when we're first like crawling to when we die, these are stories that will continually be told beyond whether we're here or not. And so I want to make sure that we make a place for future storytellers like yourself to be able to share personal ideas and inspire future generations in our animation industry for the world, for the years to come. And I don't think that people are taking animation seriously. They only look at it as cartoons. But this is real cinema. We are trying to make history. And hopefully we can tell this story through a trilogy so you can see the history being made.
Wow. That is way deeper than, some people might see at the surface level.
More than meets the eye, right?
More than meets the eye, literally more than meets the eye. My goodness. Yep. I one of the things that stood out to me from the promotional material we've gotten, and I'm going to piggyback to this. I know you've like lightly touched to this, but I believe you said it wasn't really touched on like story-wise in the film. It's how the environment of Cybertron is displayed, with that pre-apocalyptic, pre-dystopian era of Cybertron. Yeah. Some of the environmental elements resemble a very terrestrial, earthly Cybertronian landscape, like the robotic deer and the animals and the grass and the trees and the moss and vines, even to the aurora and the night skies relating to the northern lights. It's obviously there's a very organic element clearly portrayed in this very alien world. My question, just from a design perspective, what led yourself and the team to take this approach of making Cybertron look and feel recognizable versus a more abstract alien mysterious environment?
I love this question. So this is like what I've been waiting for, this question. So the surface, let's start there. They've been in this underground world, and we wanted it to be the most beautiful nostalgic spectacle ever. And so I actually personally went to, we didn't want it to be like a gray ball in space, first off. Like when you see Cybertron depicted in a lot of other Transformers properties, it's usually just like a big gray ball in space that's like Swiss cheesed out from war. And I was like, no, that's not what it is. Like, let's take it back to the old school. Let's obviously respect its shape and that it has like architecture built out on all over it. But this is pre that. This is when the world is first early. So you're going to see a landscape that not only starts off as a stable landscape, but also goes into something that's a little bit more active in terms of its visual shape. And so we called it Fury Road. When you go on this path of the story, we wanted things to feel stable. And as the story starts to sort of unfurl, it has more activity to it. It has a little bit more exposition and sort of gravitas. And so I wanted the visual spectacle to be changing just like that. And by the time they get to the surface and we reveal the surface and you see in the trailer the Aurora Borealis on the horizon and the vaporwave sun, that was the first painting I did for the movie for the look of picture. And Josh and Aaron were like, let's send that to ILM and see if they can make that. And so that was the first sequence that we actually did in 3D was when they were on the surface on top of the train going above the ground. I went to the Natural History Museum with my art director, and we looked at every single mineral and metal and different types of geodes. And we were like, what kind of colors from our world would you think would be on Cybertron? And how do we make that something that's amazing? So we looked at obsidian, and I was looking at this sort of obsidian that's called rainbow obsidian, where it actually has like this Fresnel effect to it, where like when you look over water and you get refraction from the sky and then the plane changes, there's reflections that happen, and there's also opalescence that happens. And so I put together this big 3D package for ILM and I sent it over to them with all my paintings. And they're like, okay, we'll start developing that. We'll start look deving that. ILM Singapore and Sydney in tandem, both constructing that set. And they sent us over their early test of that. And we were like, that's our movie. Like, that's exactly what we wanted to do. To answer the question about the Borealis, that was my idea that, when you go to the North Pole or the South Pole of our world, there's this like magnetic wavelength that happens where the poles sort of have magnetization to them. And my idea was their magnetization's on their horizon. It's not above them. So if you actually look at the aurora, it's on the horizon level. So it's on the sides rather than on the top. So their polarities, because it's a giant piece of metal in space, magnetic. So magnetic polarity would be on the outside on the horizon level. Another thing I was thinking about was that vaporwave sun. And when you see a sunrise, that's the beginning of a new dawn. That's the beginning. That's the call to adventure. And so when they first get to that surface, I pitched to Josh that we would see this sun rising for the first time, and it would catch their attention, and they would turn and look towards it, and they would be bathed in sunlight for the first time, because they've never really seen sunlight or a sun ever before that. This is the first time that they're underground. And so you're getting a chance to experience that sun with them. And I think that's extremely important, is to be able to feel that, like, oh my God, this is beautiful. We've never seen anything like this. This is exotic. This is otherworldly, And so we really wanted you to feel that. And I think that inspiration comes from real experience. And so, I watched sunrises and looked at the color, and what you notice is there's a lot of moisture in the air. When a whole night has passed, it gets cold. And so moisture collects in the environment, and so there's fog. And so when they first come up on the train, the fog sort of splits away, and then you see the sun rise. And so you feel all that like purple and red. And then the sun comes up and it gets a little bit more cool, but it stays warm. So it goes from a red shift to an orange shift to a yellow shift. And you'll see that happen as a story. And it's all through time. It progresses through time. And we're thinking about all of those feelings and environment and how that stuff all comes together.
My goodness.
And I don't want to spoil too much, but I will say that I pitched an idea that what if an ancient meteorite landed on Cybertron and planted the seed of life for organic life to sprout? And that's why there are plants on Cybertron is because
Ah,
meteorites from space, because they have a very thin veil in terms of their atmosphere,
yeah.
have landed on their planet. And so, we definitely wanted to inject that feeling of real physics and, real organic life sort of translated onto the surface.
That's what makes, just from listening to you, that like thinking about that, that is what makes animation projects, especially this one, from everything you're explaining, more of like a creative approach versus like
Yeah,
some of the live action adaptations. Because with the live action films, the environment is basically set. It's a city. All they have to
that's
do is
right.
film the environment. You guys have to construct and create the environment from the ground up, which I find to be
Everything.
way more creative, and it takes a lot more talent and a lot more collaborative effort. And obviously, you guys have went through a lot of refinements and tons of hard work. And
Yeah,
perhaps we can even attribute a lot of this credit, as you said, to ILM for taking this project as the film's animation studio in order to truly elevate the CGI to a spectacular level. And I can already tell this is going to be the most visually stunning animated Transformers project in history, from what I'm seeing. My question is, I guess, what was it like watching ILM's team co-develop this film behind the scenes? And was there any inspirations that you know of from any non-Transformers projects that went into creating the visuals?
it's a great question. ILM is an extension of our art department. So I hired Tim Kaylock, who was our world builder, our lead world builder that did most of the 3D modeling for our set pieces, and Josh Tonninson. But we had these Kat as well. I have to mention her name. Kat was amazing because she was our looked at and modeling lead over there. And the great thing about them is we went over to Sydney. Like I flew out to ILM very early on with Josh Cooley and with Aaron Dem, my producer, and we sat with them. We had these like hard discussions about where we can spend our money and where we're going to save our money. And one thing that I did, and I want to give some props to my team, is we built the entire world like a video game, where it was all built modularly, and each piece can be repurposed and reused in a specific way or resurfaced in a way where it felt like another space. And that was us thinking about that very early on. And because I have a games background, we actually had a small art department because of that. Usually, art departments on a 3D animated movie are up to 15 to 25 people. We only had 9. And that's because every person was like a Navy SEAL. They came in, they were like my strike team, and we went lights out, dude. We just put on our night vision goggles and we went to war together. And we've done it before. A lot of us have worked together. I want to give a big shout out to Mario Pata, who helped design a lot of the surfacing and all the environments. We color keyed the entire movie in the art department. So we did over 500 color keys, and every single sequence got hundreds of paintings. And we were doing set breakdowns and 3D models, as well as sketches, as well as like full blown paintings that were like visual development paintings to show what those sequences and sets look like. I think personally, I painted over thousands of frames of the movie and went back and forth with Industrial Light and Magic's team of lighters and painted over their frames. So they would send renders to me, and I would paint over the renders to make sure that each shot was a perfect example of what it should be. And we would go through the entire sequence and we would save out frames and paint over all of them. And what I mean by painting, I literally was on a digital tablet like what you're seeing right here. I don't know if you can see my tablet right there.
Yes. Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, so like I'm painting on top of a digital tablet and working on stuff live with them and having discussions about where the reads need to be for the characters and for the environments and for the sets.
You guys are so talented, man. You guys are incredible. I'm literally stunned. Like I had these questions, but like when you're explaining the details, it's blowing my mind how not only how much effort, but how much talent and creativity went into every single frame of the movie. And that really aligns with the feedback that I'm hearing about how visually beautiful it is and how powerful the story is and how it's one of the biggest surprises of the year. I'm even hearing from a lot of like movie critics and reviewers. That's incredible. So I do know there's been a lot of early screenings happening lately, and
Yeah,
more than what I've actually seen in recent history for the franchise, which really shows Paramount's confidence in the final product of the movie. One of the things that we've been hearing a lot from fans and attendees is the similarities that this film has with the Spider-Verse films. And some even saying that this is the Spider-Verse of Transformers. Would you be able to say if there's any intentional inspiration from the Spider-Verse films for TF1, or what can you tell us about how they styled it?
Not really. I love those films. I have my reasons why I don't like them too, and that this is not a Spider-Verse film. This is definitely an origin story. But I think from a visual standpoint, we wanted to be different and actually play to the strengths of ILM. They work in live action primarily, Star Wars, for example, and I was like, what do they do really, really well? And it's using real camera lenses. It's about real film optic, right? And so Chris Batty, our head of cinematography, and I talked every single day about the camera language. The camera is a vehicle and it is a character in the movie. And so it helps drive the story. And those conversations in the launches with Josh Cooley to talk about like what each sequence needed to feel like through the optical sense, the camera needed to be translated correctly for that. And ILM and I talked a lot about that. So our language is very different from the Spider-Verse movies. Those are very comic book. Not that we aren't a comic book project. I mean, they are Marvel comics to start with, the IDW Marvel. We did look at that stuff and we did say, hey, is there anything we can use from, the Sony language that's been done there? But there, we didn't really look at that. We looked at actually more than you think, like Stanley Kubrick and like 2001, for example, Space Odyssey, and things that were more science fiction, hardcore science fiction films to inject it into this film. And also even Michael Bay, like the way he uses the camera to show scale, like how he has the camera so low, like it's literally like scraping the ground or going underneath the ground to make these characters feel larger than life and gigantic scale. We wanted to do that because we knew that the world was already really big. They're Transformers in a Transformers world. It's gargantuan, it's humongous, it's enormous. So
Yeah.
how do we make them feel like they're still big in an enormous world, right?
Yeah.
Wide angle lenses, their shoulders are huge. When you put the characters in a shot, like they occupy like all the visual space, they're like this. And so we had to figure out ways to compose it on a wide angle and get it to have that conversational feel and like gravitas in the frame. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, I know this is the first time that, we're getting iconic actors like the voice actors like Chris Hemsworth, Scarlett, Brian Tyree Kingan, in a theatrical film for Transformers. This is their grand entrance into the world of Transformers. What was it like working alongside them throughout production? And what can you tell us about what led to the decision to introduce new cast members into these roles rather than going for some of the longtime Transformers voice actors?
That was all more on the Josh Cooley side and Lorenzo Di Bavantera. They had those discussions with Aaron and talked about who they wanted to bring on. And Josh has a lot of relationships with a lot of these actors, especially because of Keegan Michael Key and his relationship on Toy Story 4, and Scarlett Johansson and Josh had worked on a project together. And you know what? Once you really hear Chris Hemsworth speak the lines, the Peter Cullen lines, like towards the end of the film, you'll see why. And at first, I'll be really honest with you, I wasn't a believer. When I first started hearing the recordings of Hemsworth, I was like, I don't know, man. Doesn't sound like Peter Cullen. Doesn't sound like Transformers and what I know. But as he started to evolve the character, he was having conversations with Peter, and he was having conversations with his team and sort of finding that voice. He became Optimus Prime.
That's amazing.
He really did. And you know what? I couldn't have seen a better voice cast for the show. Scarlett's performance, and man, I gotta say, Brian Tyree Henry steals the show for me, man. Like,
Really?
yeah, just I'm in love with his character and Lawrence Fishburne as well. Like getting a chance to see him work on this film and play Alpha, like get out of here with that. Like for straight up Morpheus, dude. Get out of here with that, dude.
That's awesome.
It's so epic. When you hear it, you're gonna see what I mean. It's nothing on these trailers don't do any justice. Once you see the film and feel that weight and the character there on the screen and all the beautiful animation that the ILM, Stephen King and his team and Rob Coleman And all the guys at ILM in the animation department, they brought so much life.
That's beautiful. That's incredibly beautiful. Now, I will ask, being that this is an origins film aimed at showcasing the conception of not only our main characters, but the entire race of Transformers, and hopefully the origin of Planet Cybertron himself. We'll see. Obviously, the main goal is to be a film driven by lore, and
Yes.
Director Cooley even admitted before that there's a lot of lore in this movie. There's been some questions about where this would stand continuity wise, whether
Mm.
it's connected to any specific one. But from what I've gathered, just based on looking at everything, is that this is not intended to attach to any specific continuity, but to serve as the base canon origin that can apply to most or even all subsequent adaptations. What would you say, is a more accurate assessment of like the goal of the film and where it stands in the franchise?
It is actually it stands alone. It's its own thing, and
Wow.
it shouldn't attach to the live action films. It shouldn't attach to the cartoon. There are similarities, of course, and there's inspirations, of course, but this is its own story, and it is, I love to think of it as like, what if this happened millions of years ago, before what we know of Transformers? And that's really what it is. It's the millions of years before the Transformers have sort of taken shape. And I love that because it feels like this is a new story. It's a story that hasn't been told before. And we're getting a chance to see their world, their ecosystem, their society, and you get to see who they are, as sentient beings on their planet and discover them for the first time. And I love this movie because this is a movie of introductions.
Mhm.
That's what this really is it's introducing, it's saying hello to us, and it's a love letter to all of us that are fans, and tells that specific story that we've all been waiting for and wanting to hear. I've been eager to know where Transformers come from and what their, world looked like, what their society really was. And that's what we got a chance to do. And that's a big deal.
Definitely. And we know that the main characters, they're going to take the leadership role that are main for. You did say that Chris Hemsworth was kind of, speaking with Peter Cullen. Do you know if Peter Cullen ever like came on set and like worked alongside Chris, or was it more like a
I have
conversation?
no idea. That's a great question. I don't know the answer to that. I know that there were, like, this is it's like a different pay grade per se.
Yeah.
They're on a different level. When
Yeah.
the actors come in, they're working with Josh. They're working with our recording team,
Yeah.
and I'm not really involved in that process. Obviously, I know that they're happening. I could see the recordings. I'm aware of them. My interactions with the talent per se on the voice acting side is a little limited, and so I'm more in tune with what Josh is doing, and in hearing through him, he's the vehicle, the driving force of the entire story. And Josh is, oh, by the way, I just want to mention, man, I don't want to work with anybody else, dude. Like, Josh Cooley is the best animation director in my opinion in our business,
Wow.
because he's almost the same age as I am. He comes from the same level and care and train of thought that I do in terms of an animation camp, but he also loves everything live action, and he's his one of his favorite directors of all time is Stanley Kubrick. He loves The Shining, like that's his favorite movies. It's been such a treat working with him because he makes this a place that's safe for everybody on the team to share. And he truly, when he asks for notes and he asks for feedback, he's not just saying it, he's actually meaning it. And he creates a place for us to really unleash all of our creativity. And so I just wanted to give a big shout out to Josh for this
Yes.
opportunity to be his warrior and his brother in arms to bring the movie to life.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, Josh, definitely, we had a lot of confidence in it. And from what I'm hearing, this is an absolute masterpiece. And so I'm excited to see what he has to light. And hopefully, if this performs at the level that we want it to perform, he'll be reprising his role. Well, my last question that I have for you is, it's been hinted that, depending on the success of this installment, the vision obviously doesn't stop with this film, as you've mentioned already. There is a possibility of this becoming the start of a new trilogy, a three-movie scenario where the storyline would evolve even further. Even as a storyteller, I'm sure Josh Cooley's mind is already thinking beyond Transformers 1. And some who have already seen this film say that there is room for continuation at the end of the movie. What kind of performance would you want to see from, box office standpoint and just overall from like the world and the community to embrace this movie? And how do we get this to the point to where this can be a continuation so this story can continue?
Yeah, honestly, everything is dependent on how the box office does in our world. And I made a post actually on my Twitter account, and I said, it's up to us, to help promote this thing and drive it forward. And so, Alfonso, I appreciate you, man. Like you're helping all that content get out there, and there needs to be visibility for the project. And we're only as good as like people say we are, and it's really an objective, sort of subjective sort of thing where people have an analysis of a film and can give their postmortem how they feel about it. But I think this film has legs. I think if it doesn't kill it right away in the box office, it's going to kill it in the long run.
It will.
And I know it will. And I'm excited about that part of it. Is that at some point everybody's going to see this film. It's funny because people say, "Oh, I don't care about the origin of Transformers." Oh, you do. Transformers have been around for 40 years. It's in your psyche. It's in like who we are. It's our DNA. It's going to be it's a question that people have been wanting to be answered for a very long time. Not just the fans. This is people that haven't even seen the movie. I have people I've screened the movie with that have never even seen a single Transformers IP related thing. And they're like, "Thank you for making something that makes me want to watch everything else." And I'm like, dude, we've done our job. I'm so happy right now because they genuinely love the franchise now. They're like,
Yeah.
"I want to go back and watch all the Transformers IP. I want to watch all the cartoons and the Michael Bay movies because you guys have brought something new that makes this whole thing feel fresh." And that's what we wanted to do. Ultimately, I would have been doing a disservice as a designer if I hadn't got that that's what I wanted to hear. Let's just put it that way. Short answer. I'm so happy I heard that because it made my job worth it.
Beautiful. We've already heard from some people on Twitter, saying I've never seen anything Transformers, but I'm interested now. I'm invested now. This is so cool. And that's the goal. That's the ultimate goal because obviously it's made for the fans, but the fact that it can touch and it can reach out to the general audience, people who don't understand, because it's telling the origins, it's giving that introduction,
That's
along
right.
with feeding the Easter eggs for the fans, it's serving the best of both worlds, even with the tone of the film. I know that that's one of the things director Cooley said he worked on a lot is to try to refine the tone because a lot of it, even in
Yeah.
the marketing for Paramount, you see the appeal to the youthful audience, the younger audience, but then people that see the film see the more mature tone, the seriousness, the darker themes. You guys
Yes.
are doing the literally best of both worlds, more than meets the eye, taking it to life. And so
Yeah.
that's really reflecting, and you can see it a lot in the reviews and the ultimate feedback. So that's what I think is the most exciting thing about this film. Is not just the storyline of the origin, but
Yeah.
it is how many arms will be
Yes.
reaching out. The general audience, fans, kids, adults, all of us. It's a movie for all of us, all as one.
And it's meant to be all as one.
All as
And it's meant to be a space that's for people to transcend all ages. But also, I will say it is a very dark story. Like this shit goes there, man. Like
one.
it goes deep and it makes you question your own morality in a way. And it's got that like X-Men Magneto Professor X like, you know, X-Men First Class gravitas to it. It's Shakespearean, man. And that's Josh. At first the tone was very, kid friendly. And I pitched visuals to Josh very early on that were very serious in tone. And he's like, "That's our movie." He's like, "I want to go there."
Yeah.
And I was like, you do?" I was like, "You do? Let's go there."
Yes. That's
We
what
were
we
all like,
want. Like,
"Yeah."
as older fans, that's what I was truly hoping for. Because, like,
Yes.
obviously we love fun, fun, and that there's a time for that, obviously. But this is about war. This is about the
Yeah.
separation of relationships, the rise of factions, the creation of a war that ultimately leads to the destruction of the planet. So to
That's right.
properly illustrate that, there has to be some type of darker themes. I was really hoping because when we first, I'm not gonna lie to you, John. When we first, Jason, sorry, when we first saw the first trailer,
Yeah,
I was like,
that
okay,
trailer sucks.
yeah. I was hopeful because
Not gonna lie. Yeah,
it still looked beautiful, you
it
know?
looked okay. Honestly, I'll be real with you. We did all of us, not even Josh was like, "What the hell is going on?" But it wasn't our film. And the second, I wish, but you know what? That trailer needs to exist because it's for families.
Yes.
It's to get it's the first, it's planting the first seed. And damn it, marketing, you're right. It's that first seed that makes the general audience interested.
Yeah.
And then after that second one comes out and you're showing war and the brothers, like the
Right. Yeah.
anger. Yeah, like that's for us.
I can't wait. I also just want to say I just have to say, like directly, verbally, thank you guys so much for hiring Brian Tyler.
I
For
have a story for that, by the way.
do you please
Yes. So
let's do it.
we were in a review and Josh brought up composers. He's like, "Oh, I'm trying to figure out who I want to get for composers," and he brought up Michael Giacchino, I believe his name is.
Oh, he's
He
incredible.
worked with him on bunch of stuff at Pixar and of course Toy Story. And
Yeah.
I was like, dude, who do we get? And my favorite composers are obviously like Brian Tyler and I heard Children of Dune. I don't know if you've heard that soundtrack, but I used that for my demo reel when I graduated from college. It was
Wow.
War Begins. It's a song called War Begins. It's like bum banana banana banana. It just keeps like charging up and getting more epic and has like crazy ass horns. And I was like, that shit is so epic, dude. I
Yes.
came to Josh and I said, Josh, you gotta look at Brian Tyler. And I was like, he did Transformers Prime. It's one of the greatest soundtracks ever made.
Yes.
Like, give him a shot and see what he can do. And Josh is like, yeah, of course. Like, he was always open to like feedback. Let's like take a look at him. And he came to me one day, like 2 or 3 weeks later, and he goes, dude, guess what? I'm like, what is it? He's like, we got him. We got Brian Tyler.
Like,
And I was like, I wanted to like shout outside at the world. I was like, we got the
yeah.
holy grail, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I couldn't like there was like he did this suite. Okay, like Brian Tyler's a genius. He did
Oh,
this
yes.
suite, basically like this 15-minute long composition of what he felt the movie's tone can be in a sound score, and sent it over to Josh and Aaron, and they shared it with the whole team, and we all looked at each other and felt history being made.
Oh,
That like I get the chills thinking about it. We were sitting in the edit bay in Lynn Hobson's edit bay, my amazing editor. By the way, big shout out to Lynn Hobson, amazing, amazing editor. She killed it. Her team killed it. Sitting there listening to Brian Tyler's Suite, and we were playing like scenes from our movies on a loop with that music, and we just all closed our eyes, man, and we just listened to his score, and I was like, "Holy crap, this is history in the making, dude! This is true history being made right now." I'm getting hyped just talking about it.
dude.
And he released the theme today.
He did. I'm waiting for the movie, but it is
Okay,
out there. I want to see it in the film, but
just get ready, man. It's
yeah,
crazy.
I'm a diehard for Transformers Prime, so when I heard like that
Mhm.
was the least that I expected, but that's the guy that y'all needed. Like I know he cooked, and I just want to thank y'all for
I
putting
was there live on the soundstage at Eastwood Recording Studios in Warner Brothers when they filmed that live and they recorded it live.
Oh, they recorded it?
Full score, yeah. The
Is
whole
it
orchestra was there, and I sat on the ground floor as they were recording it. I'm emotional, man. Like seriously, like we all looked at each other and we were like tearing up. The
literally
team,
when it
the
yeah.
team killed it, dude. Just wait.
When I heard the news of him being casted, I literally broke down. Did they
Yeah.
record like any like behind the scenes of that?
Mhm.
Like a video? So
Oh yeah,
that's coming
yeah.
out.
It's coming. It's all coming, man. That's all coming.
Thank you so much, Mr. Oh my gosh, that's incredible. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with the community about what this film and what to expect?
I just want to say thank you for having me. A thank you to you, and thank you for your service to the Transformers community and for bringing this opportunity for me to share with the world. I'm very grateful and I'm very humbled to be here. And I'm looking forward to the world seeing the movie. I'm very excited for you to finally see it. I'm actually really happy you waited, man. Like, I have a lot of respect for you, man. And I'm sorry I couldn't get you on the premiere. And
Oh no,
the
it's okay.
my wife and I are actually flying ourselves out there. It wasn't even like we didn't even get put up, but I just wanted to be there to support the film, and I'm just so happy we have people like you in our community. So big shout out to you guys. Thank you to the entire Transformers community. You're the reason why we make this film, and we just hope that we get a chance to do more of these.
I truly hope that you guys do. I already know it's amazing. And once again, thank you so much on behalf of the Alfonso Nation and the rest of the fans for all of the hard work that yourself and the crew have invested into delivering this bold new take on Transformers cinema while giving us a long-awaited origin story that we've been wanting for a long time. Human-free, all on Cybertron, just our characters. And that's going to be exciting. I can't wait to watch this on opening night, and I can't wait to hear the score, to see everything, and just experience it for the first time. And I really, truly wish abundant success, and hopefully a new trilogy comes from this. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Till all are one.
Till all are one. You can find Mr. Jason Scheier on Instagram at Jason Scheier Art and on Twitter at Scheier Jason. Transformers 1 arrives in theaters September 20th, 2024 in IMAX, Dolby Cinema, 3D, 4DX, Standard, and more. Tickets are now available, so check your local screen times and be sure to watch it more than once. Leave a like if you enjoyed this and want more. Subscribe for more if you're new. And thank you so much for watching. Till we reach one. Good night.